Some lives begin with comfort, others with struggle. Rabia al Adawiyya's life began with nothing, no wealth, no protection. Not even parents to shield her from hardship. Yet from that nothingness rose one of the greatest voices of love the world has ever known. Her journey began not in honor but in chains, not in freedom but in servitude. Yet even in bondage, her heart remained free, soaring toward the one she loved above all. God loves those who rely upon Him. Quran, chapter 3. Verse 159. Rabia was born around the year 717 in Basra, Iraq, a city bustling with trade, scholarship, and spiritual seekers. But her family was desperately poor. She was the fourth daughter, and her very name, Rabia, means the fourth. Misfortune followed her early years. When her parents died, she was left an orphan, wandering in a world that seemed merciless. With no family to protect her, she was captured and sold into slavery. For most, this would have been the end of freedom, the breaking of the spirit. But for Rabia, it was the beginning of her devotion. Even as a servant, she did not complain. Her lips whispered prayers, her eyes wept in longing, and her heart turned constantly toward God. While others slept after a day's labor, she rose in the night to stand in prayer until her body ached. Her master at first thought little of her devotion, dismissing her as a strange and overly pious girl. But one night, everything changed. He awoke to find a strange light shining in the corner of his home. It was not the light of a lamp, but a glow surrounding Rabia as she prayed. Astonished, he realized this young slave girl carried a secret closeness to God. Shaken with awe, he freed her immediately, fearing that keeping her in bondage was an offense against heaven itself. Rabia, now free, faced a choice. She could have sought security through marriage, or comfort through wealth. Many would have rushed to seize such opportunities, but Rabia turned away from all of it. She chose instead a life of simplicity, dedicating herself wholly to God. She owned nothing but a clay jug for water, a mat for prayer, and a brick for a pillow. Her worldly poverty became her spiritual wealth. She wandered the streets of Basra as a free woman, but her freedom was unlike others. She was not free to indulge in the world, but free from it. She refused suitors, she refused comfort, she refused distraction. Her companions were hunger, prayer, and tears. The people of Basra, curious about the strange young woman who lived with so little, soon began to notice that her heart carried a treasure greater than gold. Rabia's prayers astonished those around her. Once, she was heard crying, "Oh God, I am yours. Whatever you do with me, I will accept, for my only desire is you." She did not pray for wealth, nor for relief, nor even for paradise. She prayed only for nearness. Her devotion was radical in its purity. Word of her piety spread. Scholars and mystics began to visit her humble dwelling, curious to hear her words. Some expected to find a simple woman, unlearned and weak. Instead, they found a heart sharper than theirs, a wisdom deeper than theirs, and a love so fierce that it silenced them. Hasan al-Basri, the famous ascetic, was said to have been moved by her devotion, admitting that her worship surpassed his own. But all this recognition meant little to Rabia. She did not care for admiration for crowds or for reputation. To her, all that mattered was the beloved. Even hunger, sickness, and loneliness did not break her, for she saw them as gifts that stripped away the illusions of the world. She carried her suffering with dignity, for it drew her closer to the one she loved. Her life in those years was a paradox. Outwardly, she had nothing. Inwardly, she had everything. She lived in poverty, yet her heart was rich. She owned little, yet her prayers shook the hearts of scholars. She was a freed slave, yet she became a master of love. This was the beginning of Rabia al Adawiyya's journey, from orphan to slave, from slave to servant of God, from servant of God to a saint whose love would inspire the world. The woman who once slept on a brick would become a queen of hearts, not through power or wealth, but through a love so pure that it burned away every other desire. The secret of her early years is this: chains cannot hold a heart that belongs to God. Poverty cannot break a soul filled with love. Abandonment cannot crush one who has found the only companionship that never leaves. Rabia's childhood and slavery were not her ruin. They were the furnace that forged her spirit into something unbreakable. Some people worship from fear, others from hope. Rabia al Adawiyya worshiped from love, a love so fierce that it consumed every fear and every desire. For her, God was not a master to be bargained with, but a beloved to be adored. In a world where many prayed for paradise and protection from hell, Rabia prayed for nothing but Him. That fire of divine love became her mark, the secret that set her apart. Those who believe are stronger in love for God. Quran chapter 2 verse 165. By the time Rabia reached adulthood, her devotion had begun to draw attention. Basra was a city of scholars and mystics, where voices of wisdom often echoed through mosques and marketplaces. Yet when people spoke of Rabia, they did so with awe. She was a woman with nothing, yet she carried herself with the dignity of a queen. Her clothing was simple, her hut bare. But her eyes burned with a light that silenced even the most eloquent of men. Her prayers astonished those who heard them. While others begged for heaven's delights or trembled at hell's flames, Rabia lifted her hands and cried, "O my Lord, if I worship you for fear of hell, burn me in it. If I worship you for hope of paradise, deny it to me. But if I worship you for your sake alone, then withhold not from me your eternal beauty." These words shocked many, for they shattered the conventional way of thinking. To Rabia, fear and hope were still chains. The only true worship was love, stripped of reward and punishment. Her devotion was pure surrender, where the heart sought only the nearness of the beloved. Stories of her radical love spread quickly. Once, she was seen running through the streets of Basra with a torch in one hand and a bucket of water in the other. When asked what she was doing, she replied, "I want to set fire to paradise and pour water on hell, so that people will worship God not for fear or desire, but for love alone." Her vision was not mere poetry. It was a revolution. She was declaring that love was the highest truth, greater than fear, greater than reward. For many, this was bewildering. For seekers, it was liberation. Scholars began to visit her, curious about her words. Hasan al-Basri, one of the greatest ascetics of the age, was humbled by her presence. When he spoke of fear and repentance, she answered with love and longing. Their dialogues became legendary, showing that a woman with no formal schooling could silence even the greatest men through the fire of her heart. Her life, however, remained simple. She refused offers of marriage, even from wealthy and pious men. She told them, "My heart is already bound. I have no room for another beloved." She ate little, slept little, and spent long nights in prayer. Her body weakened, but her spirit soared. To her, hardship was not a burden but a blessing. Every hunger pang, every tear in solitude was a reminder of her dependence on God. Despite her poverty, she was never bitter. She welcomed visitors with kindness, even when she had nothing to offer but a smile or a prayer. She saw no difference between scholars and beggars, rulers and servants. To her, all were equally in need of love. Her words flowed like a river, refreshing those who came weary and thirsty for meaning. The people of Basra began to call her a saint, though she never accepted the title. She insisted she was only a servant, nothing more. Yet even those who doubted her were silenced by the strength of her devotion. She had no wealth, no power, no followers. Yet kings of the heart bowed before her sincerity. The fire of divine love made her fearless. She did not fear rulers, nor did she seek their favor. When offered gifts, she refused them, saying, "The one I love provides for me." When asked to pray for wealth, she smiled and said, "Why ask for the world when the giver of the world is near?" Her answers stripped away illusions, leaving only truth. By living in complete surrender, Rabia turned her life into a torch for others. Her prayers, her visions, her radical devotion showed that worship was not about bargaining, but about intimacy. She taught that the highest state of the soul was not fear of judgment nor hope of reward, but love so consuming that nothing else remained. The people of Basra had seen many scholars, many preachers, many mystics. But in Rabia, they saw something different, a flame that burned with no fuel but love. Her poverty became her wealth, her weakness her strength, her silence her teaching. She lived not to be remembered, but to remember. And in doing so, she carved her place among the greatest saints of history. Some people leave behind wealth, others leave behind books or monuments. Rabia al Adawiyya left behind nothing the eye could see, no gold, no palaces, no heirs. Yet she left behind something greater, a vision of love that still burns in the hearts of seekers centuries later. Her life was short, her possessions few, but her legacy is timeless. She was a woman who proved that a single heart, ablaze with divine love, can outshine kings. The friends of God will have no fear, nor will they grieve. Quran chapter 10, verse 62. As Rabia grew older, her body weakened under years of fasting, prayer, and hardship, yet her spirit only grew stronger. Visitors who entered her small hut in Basra found not a frail woman, but a radiant presence. She welcomed each guest with humility, but when she spoke, her words cut through illusions like a sword. Her wisdom was sharp, her love overwhelming. She never sought disciples, but disciples found her. Men who were renowned for their knowledge sat at her feet, asking for guidance. Hasan al-Basri himself admitted that her devotion surpassed his own. Other scholars, humbled by her words, acknowledged her as a teacher, though she claimed no title. She never wrote books, but her sayings and prayers spread through the memories of those who heard her. Each word carried the fragrance of sincerity, each prayer the fire of longing. Her view of worship shocked many. When people spoke of paradise, she wept. When they spoke of hell, she turned away. "I do not worship God for fear of punishment or hope of reward," she declared. "I worship Him because He is worthy of worship." These words became her legacy, a vision of faith purified from self-interest, rooted in love alone. Despite her frailty, she continued her nightly vigils. While the city slept, she whispered prayers until dawn. Her neighbors sometimes heard her weeping, her voice trembling as she spoke to God like a lover to the beloved. Her body grew thin, but her face shone with peace. She often told her visitors, "The world is nothing but a veil. Tear it away, and you will see the one you seek." In her final years, offers of comfort and wealth still came, but she refused them. Rulers sent gifts, which she declined, saying, "The one I love provides all I need." Even wealthy men proposed marriage, but she told them gently, "My heart is already married." She never allowed worldly ties to distract her from her beloved. When her final illness came, her disciples wept, fearing they would lose her. She comforted them, "Do not grieve for me. When the veil lifts, I will go to the one I have longed for all my life." Her last days were filled with prayer, her last breaths with love. Around the year 801, Rabia al Adawiyya returned to her Lord, leaving Basra in mourning. Her funeral was unlike any other. Scholars, ascetics, merchants, and common folk all came. They carried her body with tears, for they knew a light had gone out among them. Yet even in death, her words remained. Stories of her devotion spread far beyond Basra, carried by travelers, repeated by mystics, preserved by generations. She became known as the saint of divine love, the woman who purified worship from fear and greed, the soul who sought nothing but God. Centuries later, her name still shines. Sufis across the world remember her in their prayers. Poets celebrate her in their verses. Seekers recite her words when they feel lost. Her torch and water became a symbol of pure devotion. Her prayers became songs of longing. Her life became proof that holiness is not measured by wealth, gender, or power, but by love. Rabia al Adawiyya's legacy is a challenge to every generation. Why do you worship? Is it for fear, for reward, for reputation, or is it for love? Her answer was clear: the highest worship is love for its own sake. That truth, spoken by a woman who owned nothing and died in poverty, continues to guide hearts more than the sermons of kings. The secret of her story is that her power came not from miracles, nor from titles, but from sincerity. She showed that one orphaned girl, sold as a slave, rejected by the world, could become a queen of hearts through nothing but love. Her life is a reminder that the greatest treasure lies not in what you hold, but in whom you long for. And so Rabia endures, the freed slave who became a servant of God, the woman who carried fire in one hand and water in the other, the saint who taught that paradise and hell are nothing compared to the beloved himself. She remains the woman of divine love, and her voice still whispers across centuries, calling every soul to worship not with fear, not with greed, but with love that never dies.